Hey, it's Ron again. I hope that you're having a great day. Today we're going to look at Revelation chapter 13. And when we entered chapter 12, we saw that the dragon who represents Satan was standing on the beach. And so in verse 1 of chapter 13 it says this. And I saw a beast rising out of the sea, with 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 diadems on its horns, and blasphemous names on its heads. And the beast that I saw was like a leopard. Its feet were like a bear's, and its mouth was like a lion's mouth. And to it the dragon gave his power and his throne and great authority. So what happens is John sees this beast rising out of the sea. And when we look at the book of Daniel, chapter 7, he uses a lot of these same characteristics in animals that are talked about here. He talks about the leopard, the bear, the lion, and the 10-horned beast. And what these beasts represented in Daniel were the different world empires that ruled before that. So one represented the Empire of Greece, another the Medo-Persian Empire, another the Babylonian Empire, and then the final one, the 10-horned beast, represented the Roman Empire. So what he seems to be saying here is that the beast he's talking about represents the Antichrist. So he seems to be saying that this Antichrist is going to rule over the remnants of these 4 kingdoms, or like a revived type of Roman Empire or something like that. And so Satan, or the dragon, is going to give him rule over all these areas. It says then in verse 3, one of his heads seemed to have a mortal wound, but its mortal wound was healed, and the whole earth marveled as they followed the beast. So now here it seems to be saying that the beast is going to have this mortal wound, or it says seem to have a mortal wound. So maybe he's going to fake a mortal wound to his head and then appear to be healed. And so people are going to think that he miraculously survived this deadly wound to his head. And that's going to make them marvel at the beast, and they're going to follow him and worship him. It says in verse 4, and they worshiped the dragon, for he had given his authority to the beast, and they worshiped the beast, saying, who is like the beast, and who can fight against it? So not only are they going to worship the beast, which symbolizes the Antichrist, this man, but they're also going to worship Satan, who gives him the power. And it says here they're going to say, who can fight against this beast, or this Antichrist that's going to rule during the tribulation. So he's going to appear to be so powerful that nobody can even fight against him and stand up against him. He goes on and says in verse 5, and the beast was given a mouth uttering haughty and blasphemous words, and it was allowed to exercise authority for 42 months. It opens its mouth to utter blasphemies against God, blaspheming his name and his dwelling, that is, those who dwell in heaven. So as we saw earlier in this book, we saw that we talked about how during the 7-year tribulation, right in the middle of it, that the Antichrist is going to set himself up in the temple as God, and he's going to demand to be worshipped as God, and he's going to rule the earth for the last 3.5 years of the tribulation. So that's what it's talking about here. The 42 months is 3.5 years. So it says here that Satan is going to give this power and authority for this Antichrist, this evil man, to rule. And he's going to rule the whole earth. It says in verse 7 and 8, also it was allowed to make war on the saints and to conquer them, and authority was given it over every tribe and people and language and nation. And all who dwell on the earth will worship it, everyone whose name has not been written before the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb who was slain. This Antichrist, he's going to make war on the saints, and he's going to conquer them. He's going to kill them. They're not going to be able to stand up against him. And it also says here that he was given authority over every tribe and people and language and nation. So as we saw, he was going to rule over the remnants of the 4 empires of the world. But even more than that, he's going to rule over the whole world. That's what it's emphasizing there. Every people, every language, every nation. So this Antichrist, he's going to rule over the whole world, And it says here that everyone will worship him except the Christians. And then it says in verse 9, if anyone has an ear, let him hear. If anyone is to be taken captive, to captivity he goes. If anyone is to be slain with a sword must he be slain. Here is a call for the endurance and faith of the saints. So now we saw earlier in the starting of Revelation, he would say, if anyone has an ear to hear, let him hear. And that basically means if you're a Christian and you have spiritual understanding, understand this. You'll be able to understand it because the Holy Spirit can teach you. And so he says what these Christians need to understand is that some they'll go into captivity and they'll be slain. So they're going to be captured by this beast, as it said, he's going to make war with them, the saints, and kill and destroy them. So this beast, this Antichrist, this man who rules the whole world during the second half of the tribulation, Satan will use him to go after the Christians. He'll capture them and he'll kill them. But then he ends here in the last part of the verse. He says, here is a call for endurance and faith on the part of the saints. So he said this is going to be a really hard time for Christians when they're captured and killed and Antichrist is ruling the earth. It's going to just be a terrible time. But he's telling these Christians, you're going to have to be really strong in your faith. You're going to have to really trust God, that he knows what he is doing, and then you're going to have to endure. You're going to have to just trust God and obey God no matter what happens, even when you go through these terrible things and this capture and death. And we're going to stop there for today. Thanks for watching.